Uh, Good morning. This video is going to be for March 23rd, and we're going to be reading pages 354 to 355. The name of the story is Why We Share Stories. And in this case, I'm going to introduce, this is going to be in Module 10 on the book, reading, the reading book, volume number 2, the Tell a Tale. We're going to start on page 348, and from there we're going to start moving on. So the first thing we have to do is basically make the students understand that this is going to be for as the central idea. And they have to understand the central idea of every story. So the central idea, I'm going to show you an anchor chart. So this is a chart. The central idea is basically is what the text is mostly about. We have to look for text clues, which is headings, visuals, first or last sentence, and repeated words. Normally, they have been taught by me and by the other teachers that we have to look for all these bullet points because they're text features, right? And they're going to let us know what is the central idea of the text that we're going to be reading. If we look it up as a table, the table is the central idea of the story that we're going to be reading, and the details are going to be supporting that central idea. Okay? So before we move on, we have to be able to evaluate the details to determine the key ideas that support the central idea. Examples, facts, evidence, and descriptions. Those are going to be the details that are going to be, or that are going to be supporting the central idea. Now, on this module, tell a tale. The first thing is language grows out of life, out of its needs and experiences, by Annie Sullivan. You have to tell your students that in this module they will be reading stories from different cultures that have been told over and over for many years. Have your students share what they know about different types of tales, such as folk tales, fairy tales, fables, and myths. Ask them to discuss why people continue to pass down stories from generation to generation. Possible responses can be stories can teach valuable lessons. Sometimes they can help us learn about the past, the world, and how things in nature works. Also, make sure that you have a discussion with them why we need to specify language to explain our experiences and why language continue to change. Explain the meaning of the quote. Basically, on this quote, why does it language grows out of life and out of its needs and experiences. Throughout the history, people have used language of stories to explain things that help people share experiences with one another or in between them. Ask also your students to name examples of words or phrases that have changed because of people's needs and experiences. If they are not able to do it, you can give them some background knowledge that you have of some of the phrases or words that have been changing. Now, we're going to go on this module. The essential question is going to be, why is it important to pass the stories down to the next generation? So, why is it important? You want to have a discussion with your student and let them know why is it important, why people pass stories from generation to generation, from mother to daughter, from grandma to mother to daughter, and so on. The main purpose of this one is that they have to make sure that the students understand. You have to make sure that they understand the meaning of the past stories, and generations in this context. Past stories means to tell them from one another or group to another. A generation is all the people in the family that are born at about the same time. A child, the child's father, and the child's grandfather make up 3 generations. The same thing as the child's mother, and the child's grandmother make up three generations. So they have to be able to understand how them, you, and their grandparents make up three generations. If you're able to explain and put them in their minds, they're gonna be easy to understand this kind of stories. Okay, so we're gonna go to the Get Curious video. I'm gonna show it to you guys, and that way you can they can see this video too. Okay, so let me see.
Everyone knows our story.
The tortoise and
The tortoise and the hare is a part of world folklore. We're not just a story, we teach an important lesson.
the hare brags.
That's me. I know I'm faster, so let's race.
I'm slower, but
The tortoise is so slow. I'm way ahead in no time, so I stopped for a nap. Bad idea.
I don't stop.
The tortoise keeps going, and when I wake up, it's too late.
The moral is
The tortoise wins. I'm quick and careless, so I lose. That's the moral. It's important. That's why people recount it over and over.
slow and
Yep, the race changes, of course, in different cultures.
steady.
Aesop's fable is just one version. In Brazil, there's the tale of the tortoise and the stag.
Or the Philippines.
In the Philippines, they tell about the deer and the snail.
Or in India.
You get the idea.
Slow and steady.
Wins the race.
That's always
Always the moral. We know, slow and steady.
the winner. That's always me.
Always? No. Every time?
Yep.
Let's change the subject. What story did you inherit from your family?
So this will get you talking with your students about what stories did you inherit from your family or with your family. So based on that, I'm gonna keep moving. I'm gonna flip the page, and we're gonna go to the words that we need to know. The word myth. It's a noun. And let me just zoom into this one. It's a noun, and on the word myth, you're gonna know it's a well-known story about fantastical events that happened in the past. We read a myth about the unicorns that once lived in the woods. Folklore is a traditional saying, beliefs, and stories within the community or within a community. They perform a dance that was part of the folklore. Recount is going to be a verb. And if you recount the story or events, you tell how something happened. One day, my mom will recount the story she learned from her mom. Inherit is another verb. When you inherit something, it is given to you usually by parents or grandparents. Someday, Sheena will inherit a jewelry her grandmother leaves her. So now we understand that all this on this map, knowledge map, we're gonna be able to understand that words about telling tales are gonna be important, like the word myth, folklore, recount, and inherit. Now, let me zoom out on this one. Now, why retell tells? Retells make us laugh, describe important events, teach an important lesson, and tell about a culture's beliefs. So, have your students add information whenever you have a chance to why is it important to retell tales. Now let's get into the story. On this one, instead of putting it like this, it's gonna be in page 354. And instead of just reading aloud me to you, I'm gonna put it on the computer. That way, you're gonna be able to listen, and they're gonna be able to follow along the reading. Okay.
Short read. Why we share stories. You probably know some stories that have been passed down over time. For example, there's the tale of Cinderella, who loses a glass slipper and finds a prince. You may also know about Jack, the boy who climbs a beanstalk and stands up to a mean giant. Both of these tales have been around for many, many years. Why do people tell certain stories again and again? People might tell stories to teach lessons about the right way to behave. They might share stories about a people's history. A story might recount or tell about how something came to be. It might tell about a hero or give advice. All these stories together make up a people's folklore. People often pass down stories that teach lessons. For example, Cinderella is good-hearted and hardworking, and she is rewarded with true love. Jack, the beanstalk climber, is brave and adventurous, and he is rewarded with treasure. In the African folk tale, Jackal and Lion, a jackal is stalked by a hungry lion. The jackal uses his wits to escape. Not being eaten, that's his reward. The story teaches us we can solve problems with our wits. Lessons like these never get old. Long ago, when people had a question about how the world works, they'd make up a myth, legend, or folk tale to explain it. For example, the Native American tale, Crow Brings the Daylight, tells a story about the sun's movements. In the story, the Arctic, the land of the North, is always dark. Then Crow goes to the warm lands of the South and brings back light. Even though science now explains how the sun affects Earth, people still love to share this story. Long ago, it helped the people of the Arctic explain why the sun is in the sky. Above all, stories have to be entertaining. Otherwise, people would not retell them. Boring stories become forgotten over time. Long ago, stories brought people together and helped distract them from the day's worries. The funnier or more exciting the story, the better. One example is the Native American tale, Coyote and Turtle Run a Race. It tells how Turtle tricked Coyote and beat him in a foot race. It has been making people laugh for generations. If you're lucky, you may inherit some stories from your own people. Your people are probably your family, but they might also be the people in your town, in your school, or any group you spend time with. If you do hear a good story, be sure to pass it on. Every time you share a story, you are helping to keep it alive.
Now, as you see, the words that we're going to be looking at are highlighted. Like, for example, the word recount, folklore, myth, and inherit. So it is important. So in this case, what I'm going to ask you to do after they read the text is guide your students to set up a purpose for reading this text. Point out the highlighted words that are important because it's important vocabulary for them or new vocabulary for them. Now, remind them that this is about learning, reading to understanding the central idea. Ask them, how can you use the title as a clue to the central idea of this text? The title is, let me see if you can see it. The title is going to be Why We Share the Stories. And a possible answer, the title to the title is, so the central idea of this text is going to be why people share stories. It's something simple, but sometimes they have a hard time understanding that it's something simple, the answer. How does illustrations help you understand the central idea? So ask them to look at all the illustrations around it and ask them how does the illustration help them understand the central idea. A possible answer: the illustration shows a Native Americans storytellers telling a story to the group. It looks like it took place long ago. So the central idea will probably be about why we have shared stories from a long time. So they're sharing story. This person is saying a story to this person. This person is listening to a story, and so on, right? And that's the main purpose of this illustration. The illustration helps you understand the central idea. How does the first sentence in paragraph 1 helps you determine the central idea? The first sentence in paragraph 1, okay? So it tells that some stories have been passed down over time. These details support the key idea that people have shared stories for a long time. Now, how are the repeated words in paragraph 2 clues to the central idea? So let's look at the repeated words on paragraph 2. Why do people tell certain stories again and again? People might tell stories. So if you see the words that repeat the most are going to be people, stories, people, stories again and again, tell. So all those words is going to give them a clue why they have to be able to understand the central idea or how to identify the central idea. So again, I'm going to repeat the question. How are the repeated words in the paragraph 2 clues to the central idea? The words again and over are repeated in the phrase again and over, again and over. This supports the central idea that people have been telling the same stories for a long time. What examples does the author provide to support the key idea in paragraph 3? The answer for this will be the lessons from 3 stories that had been passed down, like Cinderella, Jack and the Beanstalk Climber, and the Jackal and the Lion. Why do these examples support the key idea? They show how different stories have different lessons. And finally, so the 2 questions that you may ask, it will be, what is the key idea in paragraph 5? So this is paragraph 5, and we're gonna ask again, what is the key idea in paragraph 5? If they don't understand, when you ask them to go back to a certain paragraph, ask them to read it again. The stories have to be entertaining to be passed on. The key idea in here is that this story has been entertaining and make people laugh from generation to generation. If it wasn't entertaining, it wouldn't be passed and wouldn't be alive still at the present time. How will you state the central idea of the whole text in one sentence? Since long ago, people have told the same stories over and over to entertain and share lessons about life. And that's the main understanding. When the kids understand this part, they're going to be able to tell you something similar to this. That the story tells they have been said from a long time and over from generation to generation to be able to share lessons about life. At the end, we want you to write a paragraph explaining why it is important to share stories from generation to generation. If you think your student or your child is ready to write that, so go ahead and help them a little bit, but try to let them reflect on what they learned today and make them do at least half a page, if possible a complete page, minimum one paragraph, but we want them to write as much as possible, and that way you can understand how they are reflecting it, and then you can assess if they were able to understand what they read today. Once they finish writing, we want you to take a picture of that writing and send it to us via Class Dojo, and we'll be able to read those reflections too. Thank you again, and I hope you have a good day. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.